Hello friends, welcome to Akulmach Business Channel. My name is Chandrakant, and today in our business section we have a very important topic to discuss, which is how we are all becoming digital nomads and how being digital nomads is actually helping us achieving our SDG goals. And to discuss this subject, I will be joined by a very eminent global speaker, Mr. Kevin Cottam, who's joining us from Portugal. So let's welcome him. Hello, Kevin. Welcome to Akulmach Business Channel. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Chandra. Thank you very much. It's really wonderful to know that you've been out in the rain.
Of course, we are in the middle of monsoon season, but today I think I would like to pick your mind on very interesting subject which is affecting all of us, and that is digital nomading. And a lot of people are migrating from one country to other country while they are digitally active, and
Yep.
therefore this new term called digital nomading has come in front of us. So first of all, I'd like to know your opinion about the digital nomading. What does it mean to you as a senior leader?
Okay, great. Thanks very much. I mean, I think this is a wonderful topic, the digital nomads, because it is a specific segment. Many people will ask me, because I say that I'm a global nomad, what does that mean? Are you a digital nomad? And I say, no, I'm not really a digital nomad, but I do use digital products whenever I go. And I particularly don't want to be associated with the swarm of digital nomad because I have a bit of a different philosophy to it. So I have been nomading since I think I was 19 years old. I've been living in different countries, and I have also been positioned for months at a time, weeks at a time, or years at a time in different places. And so it has a big variance. And also with digital nomads, that has a difference as well in the sense of how long do they go, periodization, or also short-term, long-term, all sorts of things. What is the difference between that and an expat? There's so many different terminologies today. But the digital nomad is really a remote worker who has a computer and Wi-Fi, and that's all they look for. And they're looking, generally speaking, for a very reasonable or cheap place to hang out. Some of them for very short periods of time, and some for very longer periods of time. Now, there's this first rendition, I think, of digital nomads, which we're currently experiencing. Sometimes organizations have people that are working remotely, and so they allow them to be digital nomads as well. But how are they measuring them? How are they handling them? How are they dealing with all of this? But at the same time, there are others that are just gig workers, right? They get a gig, they're living in another place, they may be working in technology, they may be working like a VA somewhere. All sorts of different aspects of jobs have appeared, and we can all do them remotely a lot of the time. We don't need to be in an office. Just as today people are thinking about remote work, some sections of an organization, technology doesn't necessarily have to be in the organization. They can be remotely. Some people are just working on creativity. They don't need to be unless they have to come together. There's a variety of different aspects of an organization that we can look at. Who needs to be together in a solid place, or who can be working digitally outside and remotely. So this whole term has come not only through COVID, but it was way long before that. People have been doing. I have been working digitally with my coaching services for years. It was not very fun. We started with Skype, and that was fun. Oh, actually, we started off with telephone, and then we started off with Zoom, and no, with Skype, and then we went to Zoom or to Teams or wherever it went. And so it's the evolution of technology. And many people are not particularly fond of a lot of coaching, for example, which is digital. They prefer to be face-to-face. However, because of COVID, we all have become very conscious of we can still connect in a very big way. So the digital nomad is extremely interesting in that it's generally different age categories. Often you can separate them into age categories in many ways. A lot of the youth today, they will think, fantastic, I can be digital, I can go off and live in Bali, I can live in India, in Kanyakumari, I can live wherever there is really high-speed networks, Wi-Fi networks, or I can just use my computer. And then I can party. But a lot of them already come with money. And that money is then useful to themselves. But what about the local community? This is something that I think is important we have to think about. And what is the impact on the local community? Sure, they're spending money. They're able to then do that. But they're also very much connected into Airbnb. So what this is doing is lifting prices very, very high and is forcing a lot of local communities unable to pay for their own living. So it's a very interesting way of doing it, but most of the time, the digital nomads that are very short term, they don't really care about the community. They don't care about where they are necessarily. They're not concerned. They're interested in their short term, just getting their work done, moving on. So it's the move on generation. And now, but then there are people that are longer term. And the longer term, they start to get into community. They start adding to community. They start becoming almost a little bit like expats in some ways, which is a different terminology again. And so this then shifts, and I believe that we are moving. So let me come back to, that was your first question. We talked about migration. You mentioned about migration. When I was working and doing my research where I built a nomadic mindset, never settled for too long, I asked nomads about migration. What is migration to them? Migration is a seasonal process. And it is a seasonal because you move on to a better life. It is always moving on to something better. So in other words, there's survival. And what are we doing today? If you look at climate change, if you look at biodiversity, if you look at everything that's impacting us today with inflation, all sorts of things, people are migrating. They're migrating for a better life. That is the majority. Some are migrating just to use a company, or I'm sorry, a country, and some are using to see how they can profit from a country. But others are looking for a better life, a better existence, a better, safer life, all sorts of things. And when I asked them about migration, they said that animals migrate for two reasons. One, as I said earlier, for a better life, for survival, for seasonal, because there's no food. The other is to give birth. Now, if we think about that, it's about giving birth. So a lot of people give birth, and then we think about it in ideas, or adding to another country, or finding new ways of doing things, or just thinking of how are the new friends and communities that you can. This is giving birth. And that's what a lot of my people are doing migration-wise. Migration is not a bad thing. But what's not so good is when they get to countries, the country does not have an integration system which helps them to integrate. It's about giving them a place to stay, some money, some social security, all sorts of things, and also lessons for language and stuff like this. But a lot of the time, it is not about the integration into society. It would be natural for us all, because we're individuals or families that are migrating, is because we want to be with people that speak the same language, eat the same food, have history of knowledge of the cultures. That would be natural. But how do we integrate? So with digital nomads, I believe in this segment, it's about migration, but they don't think of it as migration necessarily. They just think of it as a good thing to do, to travel. And really, they are travelers. And they're wanting to see a place, they're wanting to have fun in a place, and they just know, I can work from it. But it's not so easy. There's many different ways of doing this. So
Let me
it
ask you
is
a question. Let me
sure,
ask you
sure,
a question.
sure.
Right. So when you talk about digital nomading, I mean, the way I see this is earlier we used to, like you mentioned about when we were migrating to another place, another country, then it's in the search of better job, better living conditions, better friend circles. You know, there could be thousand other requirements for people to migrate from one country or one city to other city, mostly for better opportunities. But today, because of the digital nomadic culture, you don't have to migrate anywhere. You can digitally migrate, and that too on your choice. And you have a choice. If you want to go to Italy today, you can do it. You can go to Italy digitally. For example, you and I are talking digitally. You are in
Yeah.
Portugal and I'm in India. So, in my opinion, the digital nomading is putting a break to the actual nomading, and that may impact the population growth also, because you know when people travel, they build their families. I think some of the things that you mentioned is that you build a culture bond with other people, other cross culture marriages, etc. All that is going to stop. In fact, marriage itself will be a very difficult thing, because you will not be able to date other people. I mean, you can do a digital date, but then it's a digital date. It is not real date. So I think it is going to create a lot of these imbalances which humans are used to. So in my opinion, the digital nomading is putting a spanner in the way we live, in my opinion. And therefore, the United Nations SDGs, sustainable goals, which is basically built on the studies done years before. So my question that I want to ask you with this background, which I have in mind, is that the SDG is the ultimate goal for every organization, whether or for every human being on the earth, basically to become sustainable. And so I would like to ask you, with this digital endeavors which humans are embarking on, is the SDG goals relevant? Because I think those were done considering what was happening 20 years back. But right now, it is not the case. What do you feel?
I think the SDGs are extremely important, and of course, organizations have ESGs, right? And so, consequently, this is the entrepreneurial aspect, and they need to be able to be aligned. And so, therefore, the people that are digitally nomading really truly need to be aligned as well with the SDGs of the organization that they're working with, or if it's just a gig worker, who are they working with, and what's important to them. I think there's a bigger aspect here. It's not just renting somebody or just hiring somebody, just like you would on Fiverr or Elance or Upwork or whoever it is. No, there is a bigger piece of the pie, which is the SDGs, the climate, the universe, the planet, the integration of individuals, the migration of people. How do we save this? And if there is, there is this talk that digital nomads, the carbon footprint is so high because they're moving around, and there is, sort of predictions that about 1 billion people will be doing by 2035, I've seen, will be digital nomads. So, but that is a broad perspective. It's not everyone that's traveling. As you were saying, you could sit at home and be a digital nomad because you're not being, you're not going somewhere. I mean, you can be sitting at home. But the point here is what you're saying is that the SDGs are vital. That is digital nomad 2.0, because when you enter into community, you need to go into the culture. It's not just placing yourself on top of the culture and being avoidance of it. Ultimately, locals don't like it. They feel shunned. They feel that they are being used. They feel sometimes all of the negative pieces. They are also reaping the financial reward, but sometimes they are not, because it raises prices so bad. But with the SDGs, are they being conscious of pollution? Are they being conscious of the carbon footprint? How are they offsetting their carbon footprint? Or do they even really care? This is the problem. And it's the education. It's all the different aspects of the SDGs I think are vital. And that is a moral issue. And it also a personal driven for myself. When I move from another country to another country, the most important thing for me are the people and the culture. Is that I want to be able to be part of the people and the culture, because if I'm going to move to another country, they are the salt of the country. And if I'm distant from that, I will always be distant, and I will not be integrated enough. For me, that's the exploration, that's the excitement, that is the growth, because that is what travel in itself is about growing, is about learning, is about understanding other people, it's about looking at different cultures, it's not judging, it's about going in and taking yourself as an open individual into another person's society and understanding that we are guests. We are guests. We are guests. And when we are guests, we need to follow the guest's rules. And that's why it's important also to be sustainable, to focus on the SDGs, because that will keep us integrated into the society. That will also help us to help the society and serve the society as well as just being there. And that is a role of a digital nomad, the future digital nomads. Today is just fun and pleasure for a lot of the people. But for many, it also is about culture. And that is the people that have taken it to the next level. And those are the ones that we want to create on an ongoing basis. So as you know, that they have now, and I think it's about 20 countries, they have digital nomad visas, and which makes it easier for people to come, because otherwise there is a tax thing, which it happens. And so because everything is digital, your clients are elsewhere, is that it's very hard for countries to be able to tax you or to be able to find you and all sorts of things, because people would come in on a tourist visa, which is illegal for them to work. So there is that is important to understand. But as you talk about the SDGs, it also has to come from the individual. The individual, what are the values? What are they thinking of countries? What is the thinking of the planet? It's not just that country they're going to, but it's the whole planet. Because as my nomadic people told me, is that if you have one problem on one side, it's going to affect its way over here on another side. It could be another country, it could be elsewhere, but everything is interconnected. So we need to be able to understand that digital nomads in the next rendition 2.0, they need to have this focus of culture. They need to know the SDGs. They need to take care of the climate. They need to take care of, pollution is rampant. You go to Bali, for example, and it's not just, the pollution is horrible. It's refuse everywhere. But of course, on the beaches, it's even worse. It's like seas of a whole beach of plastics and all sorts of things that's come onto the beaches from a variety of other countries and whichever. But what about if you had this consciousness as a digital nomad that this is not right? How can I help the society along with it? And so that's how I live my life. But how can I do this? I have a variety of friends in Singapore, for example. They're not digital nomads, they're expats, but they go and spend time on the beaches collecting and the plastics and the old, strings and everything that is floating everywhere onto the beaches and where else. But this is important, I believe, even though you say that it was written a long time ago, but it was early thinking. Now it's even worse. We need to think about it in a much more accelerated rate. And that is what a digital nomad needs to do.
So let me give you another perspective. For instance, if you look at a country like India, which is much bigger than the Europe, and the Indian government is pretty much like the European Parliament. I mean, if you compare the two, so you can imagine the scale here. And within India subcontinent, we can go anywhere. I mean, if you are an Indian citizen, you can go from one state to other. There is no visa required. There's no permit, etc. You can freely travel, and because of that, there were a lot of migration. Physical migration happened for last 100 years within India itself. So the society has evolved over years in a very homogeneous manner, even though there are multi-language, multiple cultures, etc. But today they are highly mixed up. What has happened because of the pandemic? It gave us an opportunity to return back to our original state, because now we knew that we don't have to spend our time in the on the road, uh, traveling, wasting 2 hours in traffic, or physically going to the office, and also paying rental for the office, etc. So most of us have decided to become a digital organization today. For instance, my companies are completely migrated to digital company. It's a completely digital platform. Similarly, I was talking to a friend of mine who was a very senior person in the financial industry, and he is now moved just hardly a few kilometers away from my house, and he is now also moving completely on the digital platform. So what is happening here is, I mean, if you look at the SDG, we are uh, not traveling, so we are actually contributing uh, by not polluting the environment. We are not taking the vehicles, and as far as possible, using bicycles and walking around close by. So I think we are doing all that. At the same time, we are breaking the barriers of traveling to another state or another country, and that prevented people like me to hire uh, 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 you know um, people from any other physical location.
Right,
And
right, right.
so because now we are digital, I can hire people in any state in India without any hassle of opening an office. I can hire people in Australia. I can hire people in Middle East. I can hire people from Vietnam. So don't you think becoming a digital nomad, that means the nomading culture is happening digitally instead of physical, is contributing to achieving SDG goals?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right on that. I mean, as I was saying, that the technical term of it is a digital nomad moving to another country, but it can also be internally, but also it can be even internal, even more, as you talk about, is the digital within your home, is the movement outside, the movement that you are doing with your business, which is digital. And that is also nomading as well, because it's a migration of information, it's a migration, it's a different way of communicating and sharing. And nomading is about migration. So we can look at it from so many different angles. And it also is a mindset. It is also a thinking pattern. And that takes us it takes us into that freedom of, well, I can live in one of the states, another state. I can go back to my home, but I have that freedom of feeling. And I think that is probably one of the most important things, is that feeling of freedom and the possibilities that can bring. And as long as you have that understanding of what am I doing to relate to the SDGs, most people don't even know what they are. But we are looking at it from different places, like the way you package your things, or the way that you are also disposing of your garbage and stuff like that, and separation of garbages. But you also have, so much of, you don't have to travel, as you say. But you also, the digital framework and the energy that it takes is also adding to the problem of climate change on many ways, right? So we have to measure what is best on all fronts. However, but I believe that you're absolutely right, is the digital nomad is not just moving from place to place. And also, today, most people think that, oh, nomads, they don't have a home. That's not correct. Most of nomads in the society today have a home, because they are limited of their movement. In the traditional indigenous people, they're limited in their movement because of land mass and because of governments and policies and all sorts of things. And that is what is sometimes limiting the digital nomad space in some ways. But internally in a country, it doesn't limit you, as you say. And so you can go nomading anywhere. And that's what I say, is go nomading. This digital nomad title of who I am is not really truly who you are. You're just a traveler, most of them. And that's fine. It's all cool. And I love the fact myself that I'm able to work digitally from anywhere. And I enjoy that. But I'm different than a lot of people, is that I'm interested in the society. And that's one of the things because that becomes part of my life. I'm not just sitting in front of this computer all day and I don't exist outside. That, I believe, the same for yourself and anybody that is digitally moving within India and back to home or to another state, is that they're also interacting with society. They're adding to society. But when you are a foreigner and you just stay for a length of time, you're not adding to society very much. Maybe financially, you're paying for your internet, you're paying, and sometimes you're not paying for your internet because you're sitting in cafes and you just, you have a free Wi-Fi, so you're not paying for that. And so consequently, it's the mindset. It is, what are we doing to societies? How can we help everybody grow? And that is, I think, what is the most important aspect of a digital nomad is, how can we come together? And people talk about digital nomads. Oh, where's my tribe in this city? Where's my tribe in this country? I get a bit annoyed with the word tribe, but anyway, it's not necessarily technically anthropologically correct, but anyway, there we go. But the point here is that it's about gathering in an integrated group of people, not just people that speak the same language, people that come from different countries, different races. This is so important. And to be open and to be not judgmental or racist. And often that happens in these countries that people go to. They're not interested really in the country, they're interested in themselves. But the next rendition is what you talk about, is the integration into societies, is integration into the SDGs, is understanding the bigger picture. It just happens to be what we do, is on a digital platform.
Absolutely. In fact, a bit of information here for you and also for other viewers is that the Indian government has just finished tendering their airwaves for about 140 billion US dollars just last week. And this is about 5G. And 5G will be 1,000 times more better than 4G. And right now we are using 4G, which is good enough for us. But then 5G will be 1,000 times more powerful. It will create a much faster, better, lot of data network. And recently, another piece of information that I would like to share with you is India has crossed 6 billion digital transactions every month. These are the micropayment. So people are now very, very friendly with digital payments, digital services, and with 5G coming by October, I think it is going to change the scene, the way we actually do nomading. There will be less and less need for us to travel. I think the digital nomading, as you said, 1.0 is just beginning and it's going to explode. And it is already destroying the barriers of countries and visas and stuff like that. Because, we have the freedom to call anybody, learn from anybody. If I want to learn mathematics or English, for instance, I can find the fantastic English teacher in Singapore. I mean, it is not necessary that I have to learn English from an English teacher who's sitting in the heart of London. I can find a better teacher in Singapore. A Singaporean may be able to teach me, or maybe Indian can teach us better. So I think, all kinds of possibilities are going to open up because of this digital revolution which is going on. And I think that is my observation. But your last comment on this one.
Well, I think what you're saying is absolutely correct, that it's just going to expand more and more. And it allows even the freedom within your own country and your own living space. So if you don't want to go physically nomading, and that's what I say in my book, is the nomad. My belief is the nomad, the meaning of nomad is the movement of the mind. And the movement of the mind, as in And neuroscience says it's the head, the heart, and the gut. And so it's this movement of you and your consciousness and your awareness. It is this bigger piece of nomading, which is this flow, it's this movement. And we are never not moving. So a digital nomad just happens to be an acronym, or it is a word, it's a title of certain people, but we can all be that if that's what we aspire to be. But it's the point. I think the last part is the nomad, and that is the spirit, and that's the soul of you, and it's always there. It's just that we have, through history, not been allowed to nomad as much as possible, but now we can do whatever, and that is the greatest thing. Go nomading, I say.
Absolutely, Kevin. It was a pleasure talking to you and learning so many profound ideas from you. I think it's opening up the mind of the viewers and ourselves also. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you again in the next one.
Thank you so much, Andra. I love it. Take care.
Friends, we had an interesting discussion with Kevin. Kevin gave us a lot of ideas how we can become a better digital nomad and contribute to society. Nevertheless, I'd like to get your opinion on this subject. If you have any questions or if you want to reach out to Kevin, the email is given in the description below. You can reach out to us and we will make the connection happen. And for today, I'd like to say goodbye. As always, thanks for watching and I will catch you in the next one.